Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Talking Stick Show. So we had the Talking Shit Show last week, and we are now back with the Talking Stick. It's been an adventure, it's been a journey. So I'd firstly like to welcome the incredible co-host we have this evening. We have the Two Feathers Medicine, Laura Massey. Hello.
Hi Dale, hi everyone. Really great to be here again.
Incredible sister. And we have the alchemist, Maty Waller, light language specialist. Hello, brother. You're on mute.
Oh. Excuse me, I said hello everybody, past, present and future. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, welcome brother. And we have Amy Kruzik, all back from her journey away in London and Paris. Hello Amy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And we have back the incredible David Ellis. Hello brother.
Hey everyone. Good topic today, good topic.
Good to have you on. So where do we start then? David, where do we start?
Okay, so we're talking about trauma today. So I figured that we should talk about trauma from like different aspects. Because there's spiritual trauma, there's developmental trauma for little kids, and then there's the good old-fashioned trauma, which is what everybody experiences or says they experiences. One of the things that I want to get clear before we start the show is if you guys are expecting us to deal with this topic in a super serious manner, that's not going to happen, right? So there are some traumas that you can deal in a super serious manner, but not all trauma is bad trauma. We want to get that straight from the get-go. Because whenever people say the word trauma, they think, oh, that's a bad thing. It's something that shouldn't happen. And as I said to the guys on the show, if it wasn't for trauma, none of you would be walking. Because when you started to walk, you fell on your asses. And then you got back up. And then you kept walking. Eventually. So, just so that we're clear, we want to just say that we're dealing with trauma in a holistic fashion. Okay? So, I don't know. What are your guys' attitudes to trauma? Is it something that you like? Is it something that you actively seek? What do you think about it?
So why don't we break down what trauma is then? Mm-hmm. So what is trauma from a human perspective? Laura, do you want to go ahead and have a go?
I suppose it is an event or something that's happened that the body has potentially or maybe immediately had a negative response to, and it can be stored in the body that way. But like David says, sometimes the long-term effects are that it's needed for our evolution and that it's needed for our growth. But it's also something that is needed to be, mostly is needed to be healed. And we have collective trauma, like collective memories of traumatic stuff that's happened to us as human beings, and we also have individual trauma. And I think it's the biggest thing really, that's why we're all about the healing, isn't it? The healing is to bring everything back to balance and to handle that trauma and to bring it into perspective, to bring it forward, because otherwise it might affect us negatively in life.
Incredibly put. Maty, what's trauma to you, brother?
Oh, sorry, man. I was zoning out there. I was laughing at Andrew.
I've just realised as well. I know on the captions it's still Talking Shit Show on the drama one, so I need to change that.
I was laughing at Andrew trolling us in the comments as well. Okay, so right, trauma off the bat. I mean, it's one of those things that we all have. To various degrees, and in a way it is our gateway into our healing, isn't it? Let's face it, it's without it then we wouldn't be able to have the path of mastery. And also the path of healing traumas teaches us how to heal ourselves, but not only ourselves but others as well. So trauma, it's a unnecessary evil in the world today. Necessary evil, should I say. Excuse me.
Beautiful, brother. And so my dealing of trauma is I see it as a memory, and a memory, say, I don't know what's gone on there, the comments have gone up, so I'm press that, there we go. So yeah, so the way I see trauma and in my own life is, say, a memory from the past which has held polarity and held lots of charge towards it. And for me, it's looking back to those memories which made me feel really sad, angry or pain or anything like that, and it's how to change that, how to go back there to be able to flip the frequency on it. And laughter is so important for trauma, because once you start laughing at the trauma, you're seeing the trauma differently to what it was for you at the start. And a lot of people are scared shitless of their own traumas, and I see this time and time again where people will never talk about it. They'll just hold it back in somewhere in there, and it'll be resolved. It'll be bringing up something really negative, a pattern for them that they won't even realize is there at sometimes. I've got a client at the moment who's doing a mentorship program with me, and he's an older gentleman, and he's forgotten his traumas, but we've started to unlock his memories more, and he's like, holy fuck, I've actually forgot all of these I had when I was younger. And he just forgot them. He made sure he forgot them on purpose. So I think traumas are so different for a lot of people, and having this laughter, like David said, is important, because you're going to break it, you're going to flip the frequency on it.
And that's why we speak the way we do. I think there's a lot of people that misunderstand when we're talking about certain issues. We it's like we take the piss out of people for the things that they do and the way they behave. But the laughter is the way that we process it. It's because we've done it all before. You know, we're only laughing because we've been there, we've done that, and it makes us laugh to look back and see ourselves in the past and some of the silly things that we went through. It's not done out of spite.
No, some shit is actually just genuinely funny. Man.
Oh yeah, and that as well.
Some shit is just actually genuinely funny. Amy, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So for me, trauma would be, events that were stressful or frightening or distressing. And for me, I think that as far as being a preschool teacher, it doesn't matter how big or small it is, it's still a trauma. Mm-hmm. And I think I took that lightly with young kids when I would see them afraid of something, because, well, I wasn't afraid of that, so why are you afraid of that? And then, trying to help them with that and seeing it, because it was kind of like I would make a joke about it, but the kids, didn't take it as a joke. They took it seriously.
And so I want to say a few things when we start. First of all, there is good trauma and then there's bad trauma. Okay? Examples of good trauma: your first sexual experience, especially if you're a woman. That's traumatic. Falling on your ass as a baby when you're trying to get up to walk. You need that trauma, or else you're not going to walk anywhere. Okay? Experiencing that fire burns for the first time. And for those of us that used to like to dismantle things like the back of plugs and put your hand in them, we discovered electricity, just like, Tesla. Okay? The hard way. So trauma teaches you. You could either go through trauma or you could grow through trauma. You have a choice. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is trauma occurs in layers. So first of all, there's trauma that is embedded in the body, which Laura alluded to. Trauma that's embedded in the mind, which Maty alluded to. But we have trauma that's embedded in the soul or the spirit or the soul memories, which is a big, big problem. So I think a lot of people have a problem understanding trauma from a sort of psychological point of view. There are 3 levels of the mind that you have to be aware of. The level of the mind that you're using to listen to us here right now is called the ego, or the conscious mind. The level of the mind that you are using to process emotions, your body's unconscious processes like your heartbeat and blood circulation, and also your memories, they're all in one area called the subconscious mind. And it is the mother of all F-ups. Everything that goes wrong with you usually happens in that section of your mind. Because when you have these 3 things in the same section of mind, what happens? It's like a washing machine effect. I say something you don't like, right? I may say that something mean to you. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too blonde, you're not blonde enough. And then what happens is that your body, your mind, the surface area of your mind, the part that you give a name to, the conscious mind, the ego, you call it David, you call it Maty, whatever else. But the subconscious mind now, right, it registers my comment as a blow. It does. Like I have hit you, depending on what your perspective is. So the old saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will do me no harm, is actually inaccurate. Words absolutely will do you harm if you let them. Okay? And then in the final stage of mind, the third part of the mind that you need to be very conscious of is the superconscious mind, what Freud and his student Jung called the superconscious mind, right? Or the super ego. And that part of your mind is hooked into my mind, is hooked into Maty's mind, is the internet, is the human internet. We never create anything that we don't have inside ourselves. So the internet, as you know it, is just a reflection of that aspect of our mind. This is what we call mankind. We share the same archetypes, the same general program, right, as human beings. Now, here's the problem that we have. You may have essential seed thought. I want to grow up and reproduce and get children. Before that thought gets to the surface level of where we're interacting with each other, it has to pass through the subconscious mind, which is the mother of all F-ups. Okay? All right? And so, in order to get into reality, manifest itself into reality, it passes through the person's memories, their body's unconscious processes, and all their emotions. Do you understand how badly things can go at this stage?
Yeah.
Because if your mother or your father was a bit of an asshole, you're going to be reflected. It's going to be reflected in your subconscious. You're going to be looking for the man or the woman that is the asshole to you, because it's what you know. A lot of people don't get that. So if you're wondering how trauma can affect you, and I want to deal with Dale's comment, a lot of people forget the trauma. No, what happens is that your surface level of your mind, the part that you call David, has forgotten. Your subconscious hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's there festering. It's kind of like a landfill. You put garbage and then you put dirt over it, and then you build some houses on it, and it's all pretty, and you're living in the Hamptons, not realizing that there's a toxic dump underneath there that's waiting to come up into your water supply and kill everybody.
And you just get used to the smell. You don't even smell it anymore.
Yes, some people go nose deaf. Right? And so they get used to it and they just function. And as a result of that, this is what happens. So you figure, okay, I want to have children. I want to get up and get married and have children. So you go out there and you find the asshole that reflects your dad. You get involved with the asshole that reflects your dad. Your thing is to, I'm going to have children. Okay, so you have a child, have another child, and dad is right there in your house with you. I know how sick all of this sounds, but it's real, right? And what happens is that you can't get out of your own shit, right? Because that filing, that festering toxic dump is coming up to the surface. So you start to act like your mother.
And time again, it's shown throughout the whole world. It's such a common thread going on is that people will go for someone, they'll fall in love with them, then realise they're a fucking nutter and they're absolute psychopath narcissist. It's such a common thread throughout this world at the moment.
Yep.
Someone going into a relationship, I've fallen in love, I'm head over heels for this guy, but when they get to know him, he turns out to be a narcissist and a horrible person who doesn't care about you at all.
So you're saying that the perception that you form from childhood, then growing up, then it then forms your perspective on life.
Yeah, because I wanted to deal with a comment that was made on the show. A lot of people they're afraid of their traumas, but traumas can really rule you if they get deep-seated into you. Okay? So the trauma that you experience as a result of an abusive father, you can't escape that because it's what you know, it's what you're comfortable with. There's a reason why there are some women that are out there that look for toxic men, and a nice guy comes their way and says, "Hi, I want to make your life better. I will do anything for you. I love you from the bottom of my heart." And then the women be like, "No, I don't trust that. No. It's not what I know. It's weird. Stay away from me. God damn it, stay away from me." There's a reason why that happens. It happens because you're taking them out of their comfort zone to a man that's all caring and wants to give them like the world and stuff like that. That's not what I know. If you're not slapping me, I don't want it because it makes me feel weird.
And it happens as well with abuse. People who have been abused when they're younger sometimes go for a partner who's quite, even though they might not be physically abusive, they're very narcissistic. They do everything for them. They tell them what to do. And they go into that level of kind of like being owned for the rest of their life. And they feel comfortable in that way because of trauma of the past they've not dealt with, or they've not found freedom.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit interesting to see how trauma works. Here's the other thing that's very interesting about trauma. Trauma embeds itself in your muscle tissues and your body. It absolutely does, right? So let's say you went to a shrink, okay? You go to David's office, knock, knock, knock. You know the knock, knock, right, Amy and Laura?
Yes.
You get into my office, and I'm dealing with your trauma, and he's saying, "Oh, I get you over the trauma. It's still in your body." So you go out. The body has memories as well. Your tissues have memories as well. For those of you who don't understand it, the fact that you are walking right now is a result of the traumatic event of falling on your ass when you were young. Okay? So your body remembers what it had to do to stop you from falling on your ass. That's why you're walking. That's the only reason why you're walking. Okay? If I remove that memory from you, right? And you don't remember what you had to do, you would be falling on your ass as an adult. That's a trip to the emergency ward right there happening. Okay? So some of the body's memories you need, right? And so this is what happens to the woman who's been traumatized by the man. She comes and seeks help from a psychotherapist, right? And she says, well, I married my father and he's really mean to me. And the psychotherapist does what the psychotherapist does. He tries to get rid of all the memories that the individual and work her through it and their coping skills. And then she goes out and finds that man that wants to give her the world, wants to give her everything. Right? And now she's better as far as she's concerned. But no, your mind is better. Your body ain't. So this is what happens. Every time that man raises a fork, right? Just to put some food into his mouth, he should be... The body has the memories. And he's going to be thinking, you got issues, go back to the psychotherapist. Psychotherapist is lost as to what to do because she shows all signs that she is recovered and everything is fine, but the body is going to keep reacting in this way. Why?
So the body's gone into hypervigilance.
Correct. The body's going to keep reacting in this way, and what you absolutely are going to need is something called NLP or somatic experiencing, where the individual has to relearn how not to flinch. But that's just a reflex that individual has brought up.
And I've seen the worst of the worst to minor traumas, and sometimes these sexual traumas or abusive traumas that they can't even sit still anymore, but they don't realize what it is. It's like just within their field, and they kind of don't understand what it is. And when they go to see a deep tissue specialist or Rolfing or myofascial release, they start going into the areas where the trauma memory is, and it starts being released from them. And I've seen people just have some beautiful experience release from just going to see someone who does deep tissue work, because the trauma is still there. They've not had any deep tissue work. And this is how important for those listening who have been in trauma. You have to go see someone, hand specialist, myofascial release, Rolfing or something like that. That has to be done, because all of that traumatic memory is going to be stuck into the tissues, or where you're abused on the arse or the hips or anything like that. You need someone to literally go physically into it and start getting out slowly.
So can I ask
there's
a
another
question?
aspect. Go ahead, sure.
So if you're in hypervigilance, that puts you into your adrenals more, doesn't it? Because you're in a state, your body has become in a state of survival. So that throws your body completely out of balance.
Yes, this cannot be stated enough. When your body is in hypervigilance, a messaging system, your endocrine system, receives the command to react in a particular way. And so even your cellular structure creates scars where they're not supposed to be, scarring tissue where they're not supposed to be. Okay? And it's all in an effort to stop you from getting hurt. Your body is a survival machine. And so, to answer your question, Laura, your original question had a lot to do with the way out of it. Okay? You absolutely have to start relearning the way out of it, because the command is there. I keep telling people when they come into my office or whatever else, just because you get rid of a problem, right, doesn't mean that the commands that your body has put in place has ceased to exist. Okay. Do you guys want an example? It's a gross example, but I can tell you what the example is. Gross example. Women who have been sexually abused when they're young by men who do not care about them. They develop something called vaginal scarring. Do you know what that does? What it does, it numbs the areas in the vagina, and they can't experience sexual pleasure a hell of a lot. They literally numb that area off because the body builds scar tissue inside there to stop the nervous system from being accessed. That is a real thing. And so it deadens them inside and out. Okay? Their mind flies away in sexual activity, and their body is unable to access the nervous system. And so that's a real life thing that has happened. And so the question remains, these women, a lot of them are doomed. You want to know why? And I say doomed because how do you explain to someone, hi, I have vaginal scar tissue in there that's preventing me from enjoying sex? You can't. And then what would be the solution to that? You got to get rid of the scar tissue, but how? And they don't know. And I suspect that's why we have this show, to tell people stuff.
Well, there's an interesting comment actually, David. Let me find it. As soon as I saw this, I thought, what a great question. Here we go, from Universal Love. How do you step aside from your current trauma to address older traumas, like the death of a loved one that can't be laughed about? Just remember good times. So obviously that's, a certain type of trauma. And what David's talking about is also a certain type of trauma. But this is the interesting thing, isn't it, David, that a lot of the traumas that we experience now are affected by traumas of the past. Mm-hmm. So we have these traumas now, and by going and healing those aspects of us in the past, we actually have a healing for the self of the now. So they work together, don't they?
Okay, so there are different ways of approaching the concept of trauma. By the way, before I forget, we have a little quiz for you guys to take. I believe that Dale put it on a QR code, so get your phones ready when he pops it up. It's a stress survey. It'll give you a score as to how stressed you are right now. So
it's up now.
You guys can put it up.
Laura, if you want to point it, you're right next to it. Yeah. Laura, hello.
Like, so, for those of you who do not have a whole bunch of money to go to a psychotherapist and so on, there are different ways of handling trauma, present and past. So if you go to a psychotherapist, he's going to do one of, there's a number of techniques. But for you guys, especially for those of you who have a spiritual perspective, you got to take what we keep saying on the show. And in past shows with Andrew, take the 20,000 foot view of your life. If you stay on Earth and you're looking at all the crap that's melting down around you, you are going to be stuck. The gravity of everything that's happening around you, literally and figuratively, is going to pull you down. You got to move from that perspective to a higher perspective where you see all the events in line. So I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to give you guys a simple exercise that you can do, right? You can make a chart of your life and put all the bad events and all the good events that have happened to you. look at them and see the trends that are happening. Because the truth of the matter is, some of the stuff that's happening to you will be enabled by you. A death of a loved one obviously would not be that. Okay? But some of your life choices would lead to certain consequences, and especially if you repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. Okay? So you can mitigate some of your stress by eliminating the seed choice that you're making. Okay?
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
With your timeline, which you had us do in your class, I noticed on mine that I would get like a sore throat every year at the same time, or I'd get the flu every year at the same time. And it showed up as illnesses. But, you know, I didn't know at the time why, but it always seemed at the end of a school year for me.
Stress release when everything is coming off of you.
Yeah.
Let me explain the concept of homeostasis to you guys, because there's a mental homeostasis. It's a fancy word of saying, if you put a deck of cards, a house of cards together, and the cards are bent wrongly, but the structure stays, it's built wrong, but the structure is staying, right? That's homeostasis. Everything is working well. I'm in shambles, but I'm functioning. I'm still here. And then you tell them, you know, you built that house wrong, and they're like, I'm not messing with the house. Okay, it's working. It's working for me, and that's all. Because they know that if I straighten up one of these cards, the whole house is coming down. Make sense? And so when you're dealing with people who are highly stressed and they're running off stress, like the people in Wall Street, for instance, we're running off stress, we're running off trauma, right? We're constantly afraid we might lose our jobs, right? As soon as you send these people on vacation, they get sick. Okay. As soon as they end up on a beach, the sun is shining, kids are playing, and then they're like, I don't feel well. I don't feel well. And there's a reason for that. Because your body is used to a certain charge, you take it off, and your immunity just drops through the floor.
Yeah, it's run on adrenals, isn't it, a lot of the time?
Yeah, because one of the gifts that adrenaline gives you is enhanced immunity immediately, right? And for those of you who don't understand what that means, because we have to be very specific for different people who have different ideas about anatomy, adrenaline is a hormone that is produced in your adrenals called adrenals because it's next to your kidney, and it's a supercharger. It makes you superhuman, right? So as an example, if I were to pour gas on you and set you on fire, you would suddenly become extremely strong. It would also be traumatic, but you would get extremely strong. You would somehow be able to leap into the lake to put yourself now, right? Women who are pregnant develop a hormone that makes them extremely strong. They don't realize how strong they are until they have to do something. Okay? All right? Unless you do anything that they don't like, or piss them off by not getting them ice cream, or I don't know, green mangoes or something, right? Then they realize how strong they are because, you know, they end up strangling the husband and he can't do anything. So my point, women who are in the labor room who are going through labor, and the husband stupidly opts to be in the labor room with them, and, you know, hold my hand, and they have like track marks on their arms afterwards because you asked over to hold your hand, and your hand turned into like crumpled foil paper. So they realize you get extremely strong when you are afraid. That's what usually triggers adrenaline, or when you are angry. When you are traumatized, however, the adrenal load in your system, adrenaline is something that is meant for survival. So if a dinosaur was chasing you, you would get a shot of adrenaline and you would be able to run faster. It is not meant to be used a whole 20 years down the line. You have adrenaline dumps in your system.
And you can have so with adrenaline as well. Adrenaline can connect to ancestral karma. So as you grow up and you have, this is from personal experience as well. My father was quite high adrenaline. My mum was very high adrenaline, and they always used to produce adrenaline quite easily. And I grew up taking that on basically, and I always produced adrenaline faster than I shouldn't. My adrenal glands turned on when they shouldn't, and I've had to do a lot of inner work where I've had to bring my adrenal glands back to the moment of the now and allow the past to come away from them and start regularly clearing them, healing them, relaxing them, because as soon as those adrenals are turned on, it's quite hard to turn them off. So I've been doing a lot of adrenal work myself, and I actually had sciatica because the amount of adrenal amount of adrenal gland action I had as a kid, it created sciatica in my legs. So I have to regularly go because my adrenal glands do turn on a little bit more, because that's a conditioning I had as a child. My dad was like that, my mum was like that. So a lot of inner work for me to do anyway on that.
Yeah, it's actually very important. So for those of you who are wondering whether the concept of trauma was a simple concept, it's not simple, okay? Because that state that he's describing can shorten your lifespan because it's a load on your heart, okay? When persisted for many years. The other aspect that we probably need to speak about, and which is actually very important, is the spiritual aspect, the soul aspect. A lot of people have trauma and there is no basis for the trauma when they go to a psychotherapist and they do the timelines and they're looking through their life, and there's like, how is it possible that this person is displaying symptoms of trauma without having the event? And a lot of people come in with it. So I'm going to guess that people who were burnt at the stake in Salem may have some, onboard trauma. There's another reason for that, and we're going to deal with the other one, developmental trauma. Because a lot of people believe that trauma happens when you come out of the womb. No. You're sharing a nervous system with a pregnant woman. So when you're in the womb. So trust me when I tell you, when that woman is stressed, you are stressed. Absolutely. When that woman is sad, you are definitely sad, right? And even when you come out of the womb and you're feeding off of that woman, I'm going to guess baby milk doesn't taste the same when that woman is pissed off. Okay? It might taste a little bit different. I don't know. It's not like we be like, anyway, never mind that.
What a discussion this is. How does a breast milk taste?
Go downhill real quick. Right. I'm going to guess baby milk tastes a little bit different, but let's talk about the first set of developmental trauma, which comes on board even before inception. So you come into this world, and maybe your last memory in past life is being burnt alive. I don't know, dropped from a building. I don't know what else is there that is highly traumatic. If you are the kind of person that has bridge thoughts, Akashic memories that you have partial access to, that's absolutely coming through. And then you'd be like, I don't know what's going on. Because here's the thing. It's disingenuous to pretend that Akashic records don't exist when you decide that you're going to be an accountant, but you're painting the Sistine Chapel without any kind of effort. You're just not painting, it just comes naturally to you. Really? No, you think it's just because you have a certain brain anomaly? No, it's because you've done it before, right? And you remember it. So it's disingenuous for anybody to pretend, this past life thing doesn't actually happen, because David, it absolutely does.
I have an example of a story which perfectly fits what you're talking about. So when it's on a home video of mine as well, I went to the Yorkshire Dales on holiday as a kid, and we went to Middleham Castle, and you see me as a kid, and they were like, do you want to go up the castle stairs? And as soon as it asked me to go up the castle stairs, I started screaming and crying. And I tried to walk up the stairs, and I was overwhelmed with crying. I just couldn't stop crying. And from then, I was terrified of heights. I've resolved it now. I've done a lot of work on it. but it was just in the memory. It was like as a kid, as soon as I started walking up those stairs, my body reacted and I was just screaming and crying. So I know exactly. I've had my own experience of that
I
one.
would love to get you on my chair. Anyway, as I was saying, I'd love to get you, yeah, you definitely going on my chair. Right, as I was saying, like, so when you're talking about, it's disingenuous, as I said, to do that. But here's the other thing that you have to take into consideration. A lot of these traumatic memories come through as well. Okay? And they have no basis in this timeline, in this incarnation. And so a lot of people are have unreasonable fears with no anchoring event that they can relate to. Okay? A lot of people have different kinds of situations where they don't feel right in certain circumstances. They don't feel safe. As an example, and this is a real case in psychology, you guys can go look it up. There are children that are born with the unmitigated desire to murder their parents. Mm-hmm. That is a real thing. That is a real phenomenon that actually happens. When you have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds setting their parents' bed on fire, no, nothing happened to that child. Okay? These are things that are happening. And they have these kinds of traumas, and the parents don't know what it is, but the children just have that desire to do that thing. So, guys, when we're talking about trauma, you have to be very careful. And as for developmental trauma, if you are pregnant, you have a very special duty to keep yourself clean through those 9 months. Because let me tell you, what you're experiencing, your baby's experiencing, you are sharing a nervous system with that baby. And so when your nervous system gets charged with anger, with sadness, right? With hopelessness, with depression and stuff like that, you are absolutely transmitting that to the fetus inside your womb. Okay? Which, theoretically, the first trauma that all of us ever had was being dragged through some canal. I was happy floating in my little fluid there. I was getting my 3 meals a day, 3 square meals. You dragged me into this place, right? You got this doctor slapping me on my ass. Why? You know what? I'm still looking for the doctor to slap me on my ass. I'm still looking for it. That's the thing. You got this doctor that slaps you on your ass. You come into the world crying, right? You never see the baby come into the world. Hi. Right? You come into the world crying. Then they put you on some cold thing that you've not used to because your skin is new. And then that is trauma. That is trauma. But it's how we all got here. It's how we all got here. We got dragged. What about the people that got dragged with forceps? Can you imagine that?
Yeah, my daughter did that.
Yeah, I had that too. With my son, yeah.
My wife's had that, and she's got issues later on in her life about her right eye and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the fascia and the
yeah.
But that's where craniosacral therapy is so good.
And fascial release combined with it,
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And can I just say as well, to add to it, that those listening about trauma's not easy to get through. Trauma's not just a one-stop shop, right? You're going to do it and that's it. Trauma's something where you've got to have your own spiritual essence behind it, power, warrior, and take your time with it. Like the traumas I've gone through, I've gone to them like 6 or 7 times, keep going back to them. It's not about just a quick stop, it's done. It's going to take fucking time and effort and dedication to doing it. So, and this is what I see time and time again of people who come to see me. They want the easy route out, and I give them the psychic surgery session, but there's so much more to do after that they have to do within themselves, but they give up straight away, and they don't realize the effort and dedication it takes to come out of that state. It's not going to be an overnight process. It's a part of chipping at a rock really slowly, bits at a time, until the time comes where you have this real somatic release and you feel fucking ace because that trauma's healed. So it's hard work, it really is, but it's finding the spiritual warrior. It's very important.
So can I give you guys a few examples to lighten the show? So this guy I was on a plane with, because you know one of the byproducts of being a psychotherapist is that complete strangers walk up to you and tell you shit. I'm on a plane, I am traveling, and this guy sitting next to me, and he says, "Where are you coming from?" I say, "I'm coming from Regina. I'm on my way to Barbados, right?" And he's like, "Regina, I used to live there." So like, he tells me his story. There was a tanning salon downtown, and he decided that he was going to go get a tan because it's Regina. You're going to need a tan because you know you're not seeing sunlight for 8 months a year. So he goes to the tanning salon, and the tanning salon catches fire, and he is inside the little tanning clam thing, the little thing that closes,
Yeah.
and he's not aware that the tanning salon is on fire, right?
Fucking hell.
And so I guess he's thinking, well, it's a little bit warm in here. I mean, like, really, I only paid for the medium baked, but it's getting a little bit warm. Everybody in that tanning salon flew out of that tanning salon and left him in the little clam thing. So he wakes up, takes the little stuff off, and he has to now, because it's closed, shimmy himself out of the little thing. And the place is on fire. He is naked as the day is born. Okay? He has to now jump out of the window and run down the street with everybody looking at him. So, two things are happening here. The first thing that is happening to me is that the story is a little bit humorous, a little bit, not a lot. It's a little bit humorous. So I have to keep a straight face because you got to be professional even when you're not in the office. The second thing is that he's relating his trauma because he wants help. He's trying to look for help, and he realizes it. He says, "Oh, I've gotten over it. I've gotten over it." And then I realize you haven't gotten over it. You're telling yourself that. A lot of people tell themselves, "I have gotten over this thing. I am good. I am fine." There's some people probably in the chat right now, and for those of you who took that stress survey, you absolutely need to take that stress survey, who's saying that I am that I am totally fine. I've gotten over my trauma. No, you haven't. A lot of them haven't. If you have to say this to yourself, the chances are that you probably haven't. If you made that statement, you probably haven't.
What would the signs be, David, of somebody who's not got over their trauma? There must be many. They must get aggravated by certain situations that set it off again.
The first sign that you will have is someone who keeps relating the same trauma over and over again. They're replaying it to deaden it. I'll explain what I mean by that. Replaying the same trauma, talking to people about the same thing over and over again, right? Even strangers on a plane, right? You're trying to deaden that trauma inside yourself. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You figure that if you replay it enough times, it'll become like nothing to you. That's number one. Depends on how deep the trauma is. In his case, he is making an error, type 1 error. All right? He's making a type 1 error because he believes that the trauma is in his mind when it's also in his body as well. Okay? So that's number one. Number two is when that person becomes aggressive and a bit of an asshole. Okay, at least 80 to 85% of the world's assholes are trauma-based assholes. Okay? And that makes them extremely weak. Probably it's more than that. It's a higher percentage than that. And that makes them extremely weak because if somebody is astute enough to isolate what your trauma is, then they can absolutely make you lose control. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's so the sexual abuse trauma, which I've seen over and over again, is that they have. So another sign would be them turning off and on all the time.
Yeah,
so in intimacy, or their personality will just completely turn off, and they'll just be in program mode. So if someone, say, has sexual abuse or they're being abused, when they go into intimacy later on in life, they'll just fully turn off and not really want to do it because that's that trauma just turning off the sexual experience.
Or could they go into hyperness of that too? rather
Yes,
than just turning it off. They could go into
they could,
hypersexuality.
From my own experience and from dealing with people, it's mainly the time where they just completely switch off their personality. They don't want anything to do with sex or try and avoid it every way possible, but they won't actually say, I've got a sexual problem, I've got trauma. They run away from every idea of them seeing that themselves.
And just the shutdown itself, not even just sexuality, but just shutdown. And I've experienced this myself as well. Because the thing is that what a lot of people don't understand when they're going to heal these traumas is that traumas create programs, and then programs learn or teach you how to live with the trauma, and it's usually a destructive way of living. And when you take away the trauma, I mean, I myself experienced this with addiction. So once I removed the substance or alcohol in my journey, what was left was all of the programs that had developed in order for me to live as successful as possible with alcohol. And so the moment the alcohol's removed, those programs turn and look at you and go, rah! And that's the bit that most people really struggle with, where they think, well, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question. Yeah, I have another question. I don't know if this will change the course, but can we create traumas unconsciously or consciously in order to get sympathy or to get attention?
Oh yeah,
that would be trauma-drama cycle.
Yeah.
The trauma-drama cycle. Let me explain to you.
That's the right word.
Mommy didn't love me enough, right? So mommy and daddy didn't love me enough, so I go write nasty articles about people, right? As an example, like mommy and daddy didn't love me enough. That would be an example of a trauma-drama situation. It's when you are literally looking for little demons and little traumas behind every little door. You know the type. The type will be sitting down. I think they're trying to psychically attack me. Meanwhile, people that are trying to psychically attack you are busy hugging their teddies, curled up watching a movie. Nobody cares about you. That's a trauma drama cycle. So you invent things that are happening or are supposed to be happening to you, right? Or situations. Like a man goes to a Walmart, right? And the cashier looks at him and he doesn't like the way she looks at him, right? He's going to say, that woman hates me. She's always hated me, right? The woman doesn't care about you at all, right? Nobody cares. Nobody cares, right? So it also comes with a certain amount of self-importance, inflated self-importance as well.
So it's looking to be offended.
Yes, it's looking to be offended, and people usually give people bait to offend them. So let's say I came onto the show. Let me run a scenario, right? And I say, how come Maty gets a talking stick icon by him? Like every show I've been on, that talking stick logo has been by Maty. You just like him more than you like me. I don't
I've always
understand.
got Dale stick in my face.
Stick? Right?
Wait, get ready for this.
You think that's kind of cool? That's not cool, right? You understand? You understand how I made a situation happen? You understand how I made a situation happen? Because why does he get the talking stick? This is bullshit. I've been here like what, 3, 4, 5 times? I can't remember. And he gets the talking stick every time. It's a bunch of shit, right? And I'm standing my ground against oppression, and I know it's because I'm black. And how people think?
Yep.
It's hilarious. So this is the kind of drama cycle. So now I'm all traumatized because Maty gets the talking stick show. The next time Dale invites me on the show, I'm going to be like, nah, you're racist. Right?
I want Dale stick in my face.
And so these are the kinds of things that people do. And it's hilarious to watch it. So when they come into your office or when they come into your practice, you'll be like, You're upset over the logo, David. This is how the discussion would go. I'm going to be my own therapist. So you're upset over the logo. Yes, I'm upset. They keep inviting me, and they're not putting the logo over my head. And the therapist would be like, "Is it possible they're putting the logo there because that's the space that has the most space for the logo? Probably Maty maybe have an affinity to the logo, right? Probably there's something about the talking stick logo that he likes. Probably they have an arrangement, right? These are kinds of things that you have to reason with people. You have to initiate reasoning. Give them different options as to why it is that you might be just nuts, really. You're nuts, right? So he says, well, that is a possibility, but I just think that they look at me funny. That's the answer you're going to get. They look at you funny. They invite you onto the show and they look at you funny. Really, what's happening? Do you see that, you can give yourself those kinds of ideas, the trauma drama cycle? People look for trauma and drama everywhere they go. So here's my advice for those of you who are out there. A psychic attack is absolutely a real thing. It happens. Okay? But do your due diligence, first of all, as an example, all these things that you have in your mind where people are against you or whatever else, do your due diligence before you decide that you're coming to a conclusion that the logo on the screen, right, may be an example of people being prejudiced against you. Okay?
That's generational trauma, right, David?
It's also generational trauma as well.
The example that you're giving.
So I'm going to ask a question. Dale, is there some reason why the Talking Stick Show logo is always by Maty? You see, these are the kinds of things that you ask the question, and you might find that you are being ridiculous.
It's the only place it goes. It can't go anywhere else. I've tried. Sorry. Sorry to let you down, David, but that's the truth of it. That's the Acacia Record truth there.
David, what sort of original trauma would create that sort of, it's almost a Karen type energy, isn't it? It would create that sort of the energy that person is going forth with.
But you can relate,
looking to be offended sort of energy.
You can relate that to what David was saying as well, with regards to what's going on in like America with black people. You have to be really careful with this kind of topic, obviously, but it's series of generational traumas, isn't it? That's passed then on to the children where no one's healing,
and it becomes a little bit. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that I was that stupid to be on the Talking Stick Show. I would walk around with an air around me everywhere I go, an attitude around me. Right? If I go to the store down the road, I would bring people attitude without unconsciously bringing it. And as a result of me bringing them the attitude, they're going to respond to the attitude with their attitude as a defense mechanism. Do you see how I have embroiled myself? I now have the aura of danger around me, of offense around me.
Yeah.
Because I am transmitting all the signs and symptoms of someone who is suffering from trauma. So you could always tell when somebody has daddy issues or mommy issues. It's absolutely written all over them.
Yeah.
Okay? Right?
Let's talk about mummy and daddy issues, because I feel what you're talking about now is so connected to that, because a lot of people grow up whinging and whining about so many certain things because that's how their parents were. They were going on like the world's against them all the time, nitpicking at everything. And I've noticed that within myself in a work I've had to do, where I've had my mum and dad's lack tendencies, where I've had to do work on that. So let's talk about the mother and father, guys. Who wants to go first? And we'll dive into that part of it.
Yeah, I'm going to let Laura take this one.
Yeah.
Mummy and daddy issues.
Sticks given to you, sister.
So this goes back. So there's a degree of you're going to copy what they do, because it's just becomes part of what happens to you as you grow up, doesn't it? So you're going to take on some of their perceptions and perspectives, their views on life. You're going to carry that conditioning. You're going to also have that potentially in your DNA as well. I have to think through. I'm looking back my life to see where I have taken on, and I'm bound to have done many times taken on that. I need a bit of space to think about that.
Yeah.
I keep muting myself. Yeah. so yeah, that's it, Laura. It's connecting it and going deep into yourself and those parts of yourself which you don't want to look at about yourself. Like, look at your mum and dad's behavior patterns as you grow up, and look at yourself, and maybe write down if you can see some correlation with those behavior patterns. And that's inner work. And a lot of people say, how do I do inner work?
Yeah.
It's writing about it, understanding the programs you have within you, what's defeating you. Is there patterns within you which defeat you each year? And I've had this. I've struggled in addiction in the past, and I've overcome it. So I've gone through the darkness, I've gone into light, and so on, all the light worker salad stuff. And it is really about being responsible. And a lot of people grow up and they have daddy issues. Then they come and meet a group of people, and they go on a show, or they start getting close to people, and all of a sudden they just go really weird, and they've got this vile personality underneath them because they've got so much charge and rage embedded in them from father and mother. So one of the greatest things to do, guys, forgiveness work. If you're not doing forgiveness work, you're faking the journey, because forgiveness work is one of the most vitalist important parts of freedom. Because as soon as you hold resentment and charge against someone, it can resolve into disease, or it can resolve into the soul, just kind of like lowering its frequency and so on.
But forgiveness is a difficult path for some people. I mean, when I hear about mummy and daddy issues, it just reminds me of one person. I hope she doesn't mind me speaking about this. My beautiful soul sister, Jada. She was, she was brought up.
Oh, Maty, we've lost you.
Am I back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I back?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're back, bro.
Yeah, there we go. Excuse me. Okay. Anyway, yeah, my friend, my soul sister Jada, she had brought up with a real narcissistic mother and no father present, and it wasn't like horrific sexual abuse or anything like that, but it was definitely abusive, and she grew up to go for older men who really reflected daddy. Even like the dad bod, the whole kind of, it was stereotypical daddy issues. And then with her mum, she was then attracted towards narcissism. So she surrounded herself with older narcissistic men. And I mean, what a soup of miscreation that is for a young person trying to grow up and figure themselves out in the world. And you can see these issues in so many different people. It's like you were talking about before, David. People go to what's comfortable, and when you have that's standard daddy issues and mummy issues, isn't it? Going towards that which caused the original trauma.
That
Because
is
it's
what's happened
comfortable.
to me. That is actually, thank you for helping me remember that.
Yeah.
So exactly that happened to me, and the need to please my father, and then taking on any sort of survival technique to get that approval, and then carrying that forward into both my long relationships, one a marriage, one not, but it could have been, carrying forward that energy of needing to please. And you're always in survival, you're almost always in an adrenaline driven mode for this need to get this constant approval.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I wanted to add to that, that for me, I've come from a big family, right? So I had siblings and parents to copy from. And it's almost as if I lived in a bubble and we became these robots, very automatic, and then once I left home at 21, it was like, what is the world like? I didn't know. We didn't, take vacations or do anything like that. And that's a trauma in itself for me. Was like, wait a minute, when I was doing my automatic with other people, they weren't responding the way other people would respond, and it became very confusing to me. And that was kind of like I don't know how I got myself out of it, but I don't know. It was just, I would say, automatic. You had to burst the bubble, I guess.
So I suppose the question is, How do you tell whether somebody has mommy and daddy issues? Don't worry, you just have to be silent enough and they'll tell you.
Yeah.
They will absolutely tell you. Like, as an example, I've had experience with a few people. But the people that are causing a lot of the problems in the world right now have mommy and daddy issues.
Yeah.
I'm telling you
Yeah.
this right now. And we all have our mommy and daddy issues, but not all of them are negative. As an example, I had an epiphany just this morning. I woke up, I live alone and I'm folding laundry and I'm folding underwear. Like, why am I folding underwear? I'm like, why would I do that? Right? That makes no sense. And I realize, wait, it's because I've been programmed to do that thing. Right? You remember you remember that old thing? Well, for most of the audience, probably not. Where you had to shine your shoes to go to school.
Yeah.
You know, I was shining my shoes well into adulthood, right? You know, with the little brush thing that you shine the shoes with. I was shining my shoes well into adulthood, and then they stopped making the little kiwi little tar things,
Yes.
and I'm like,
Shoe polish.
and I finally broke out of that trauma of shining shoes, because the school that I went to, you would get demerits or detention for deportment, right? And so as a result of that, you go by the things. But when you're dealing with women or men with trauma and drama issues surrounding their parents, they are going to tell you, I don't like my mother, I don't like my father, I hate my mother, I hate my father. All right, so you're thinking, well, that's just a conversation piece up until the factored time where you either get involved with them or they're your co-worker, and then you see the manifestation of the things that they absolutely hate manifested in their behavior as well. My father was a narcissist. I hate him, but you're a narcissist at work. You see how that works?
Yeah, well,
You got
sometimes
to
you
be very
employ
careful.
that. You employ that, don't you, as a means of survival? Because I noticed living latterly with a narcissist. I'm pretty sure he's not watching. Yes, I developed. You try all sorts of ways to learn to survive within that relationship, because something in you still wants it to work, because you love this person. So you actually take on being the narcissist in some ways, because you're looking to manipulate that relationship to get what you need out of it.
That's codependency.
Yeah, you do take on some of the aspects of narcissism. Yes, I'm not a narcissist, but there are times I use narcissistic tactics.
Because they're effective to the majority of the population.
Yes.
Well, let's go
and
down that
it's-
rabbit hole, shall we? Because a lot of
Yes.
narcissists have been traumatized. Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to go down that rabbit hole. What is a narcissist, and how does that narcissist manifest themselves to you? So a narcissist is someone with an exaggerated sense of self-importance. The word narcissism comes from a Greek story. And I got to tell you this Greek story really quickly because it's funny as hell. So there was this guy, right? And he was like the most handsome man in the world, right? But he had this, this little bit of a problem. He really loved himself. Like he couldn't get enough of himself. And so there was this nymph, from which we derived the term nymphomaniac, right? Well, it's not that nymphs like sex. It's just that they're kind of hot, right? Like Greek nymphs were like, they're kind of hot. They're like Sports Illustrated babes, right? And so this nymph fell in love with Narcissus because he was so handsome, and like she shot a shot. Like, hey, I see you're cool. We're both cool. And Narcissus was like, get out of my way. You're stopping the sunlight from hitting my face. Right, that kind of thing, right? Totally rejected this thing. Yeah, well, Hera, one of the gods, decided that, you got to die. Okay, Narcissus, you're dying. For sure you're dying. Right, for that. So he was walking by the stream, and he looked at himself in the reflection in the water. And he kept looking at himself and like, oh my God, I'm so hot. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know. Like, how could you make something so hot and still have a son? We don't need the sun anymore. We just need me. All right. This is the kind of, so he kept looking at himself and he didn't realize he forgot to eat. He forgot to drink water, sustain himself, because if he drinks water, it might disturb the reflection. And he died right there by the little stream that he was looking at himself in. So that's the story of how narcissist came into being. A narcissist is someone with an exaggerated sense of self-importance, and they usually end up like narcissists. But let's get to what they do. They have manipulation techniques because I am so great. Why don't other people see it? I just don't understand. And so this is what they spend their lives doing. And a lot of them spend their lives doing that as a reaction to the developmental trauma where there was a loss of parents. So nobody realized that you exist. Okay? Or they feel small or useless. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there are a lot of people who out there who feel small. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Right? No need to pull out the verbal 40 gauge, right? So, right, they're usually diminutive. Like short man syndrome is a narcissist reflection of not being seen. Okay, you all know what short man syndrome is, right?
Yes, Napoleon syndrome.
Yes, Napoleon syndrome. And so they don't feel like they're being seen, so they try to inflate themselves, usually by cutting off the heads of other people to make themselves feel taller. And so a narcissist will attack other people who they believe are more than them, whether it be in status, whether it be intelligence, whether it be in looks, whether it be in, like, I don't know, stature, or whatever the case may be. That's a first sign of a narcissist. So if you're dating someone or married to someone who continually attacks other people, as just like that's what we do, that's a narcissist.
Because they feel threatened.
Yeah, they feel threatened.
They feel threatened. It's fear.
Because they're weak inside. And so the second sign of a narcissist is someone who requires praise from you, right? So they will inflate the things that they do. Did you see the way I threw that garbage outside? Did you see the way I did the backswing? And then I threw it into the bin? Like, you just threw some garbage, right?
I do that to myself. I do that. Oh, yeah, look at that one.
Narcissist would be the person who wants you to come outside and literally film them throwing the garbage away so that they can post that to social media. Speaking of which, if you're on social media, please do not become narcissists, because that's what social media is doing to you people. With the TikTok and the Instagram and so on. And everybody's like showing body parts and how cool they are. I could do 10 push-ups. I'm on social media. 10 push-ups. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. No.
I'd like to chime in as well, David. Like, I do believe that from what I see in the world, there are people with narcissistic tendencies, and then there are full-blown narcissists. And I feel that narcissists were born that way and will die that way. And there's really no way in between, because they seem to be wired completely different. And one of the ways, one of the things about narcissists is that they can, especially just when you go up into sociopathy, but is that they can present themselves any way they want. I had an ex-partner way back who could absolutely obliterate me, and then walk into a room with a big fat smile and sit down and talk with people and have tea, and as if it didn't even happen. Just a switch like this, you know. But one thing that I've noticed with narcissists, if you're having trouble, they will always have a bitch. Now, I'm sorry for that colourful term, but a narcissist needs a bitch, and a bitch needs a narcissist just as much. And you'll find this codependent relationship. So when you see someone who is another colourful. No, I tried not to use too many colourful terms. But when you see somebody who is
an empath, would be
not an empath. No. I mean, like you'll always see. No, it's more than that. You'll see someone who is completely subservient. There's sometimes you'll see people who can tell them what they can and can't do. You've seen this, Laura. No, you can't have that. You know, no, we don't eat those things.
Yeah.
or and they'll just need it. I actually have someone very close to me that's like this, and has a bitch, and the bitch is absolutely happy to be the bitch, and this it's absolutely a codependent relationship, but that's always a big sign for me.
But narcissists can also be very successful in business.
Very much so.
Right.
Because they have some sort of glamorous aura, almost, in a way.
Let's be clear. If you think you are the greatest,
And what?
there's going to be a section of the population that are going to be fooled by it. Go ahead, Amy. Amy?
Oh, have we lost Amy?
Okay, what if I can get it in? My internet's bad. Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
We can hear you.
No,
We can hear
we
you.
can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hear me now.
Oh,
Sorry, can you hear me now?
yes.
No.
Yep.
Okay, so narcissist. What are the traumas, if we know what traumas are behind a narcissist? What makes them a narcissist? Like, what traumas, if we, I don't know if we know them.
Oh dear.
Well,
Did you do that, Dale?
No, a narcissist did it.
Yeah, you just did that.
A
Dale,
gremlin,
narcissist.
a narcissist gremlin did that one. I did.
So she asked, what are the traumas that a narcissist would have experienced to become a narcissist? Here are a few examples of traumas that narcissists would have experienced. Mommy and daddy were busy making a living to feed the narcissist and did not pay that narcissist a lot of attention. That's number one. That registers as trauma to them. I'm answering your question, Amy. The second trauma that they would have experienced is something embarrassing that would have happened to them, where everybody piled on to them. Okay? And so let's say you live in a small town. Okay? That's an example. And you did something embarrassing, like, I don't know, you went into a shower and they took your clothes and you had to walk around the school playground naked. When you get out there, you have this attitude that you're going to show the world that you're not a clown. You have this thing that I'm going to show them this, I'm going to show them that. And people are just like, we don't care what you have. Because you see, when you leave that small town and you go to a big city and stuff like that, nobody knows what your background is, but only you do. But you're acting in a way, you're looking for revenge against people that you don't even know. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are the kinds of traumas that develop that make narcissists. The other things that I could pretty much put out there when narcissists are controlled. Now that we know what makes them and how they behave, how do you deal with a narcissist?
Oh, I've got a good way.
Yeah.
The best way is so if they say something which is absurd, which they usually do, which isn't true, they've just built it up, to go back on the story and just tell them and go back to the story and go, right, so 10 minutes ago you told me this and this happened and this happened, and they completely fucks them up because they're like, what? It's not my way, it's the truth. So telling the story to them, if they come up to you and start fucking giving you loads of shit about something you've done to them, going back and just telling them the true story, that fucks with them. And they don't know how to handle that.
Yeah. I have many different ways.
I just want to say one thing before we continue. I noticed that Dale, you have the talking stick logo now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a bit upset, I was crying, that's why I went off camera.
So dealing with narcissists, I have a few different ways. First of all, the first one is when I realise somebody is a narcissist, I don't really want to be around them for much longer. That's the honest truth. I certainly don't want to interact with them or hang about. But sometimes you just can't avoid it. So if in a work type scenario, and I had this just recently, I had a narcissist guy that trained me up at work recently, and my method to deal with him was to give him the illusion of control. It was the easiest thing I could do, is just to step back and allow him to have his narrative and just wait for him to fuck off, basically. And so that's one thing that I did. I didn't want a confrontation. And when you're with a narcissist who's obviously being narcissistic, then it's just shutdown mode, just straight up shutdown mode, almost like just calling it out, or you know when you know how to do that, David. You just stop the conversation, and you do it abruptly. And the other way is not to feed the narcissism. So do not praise them, do not ask them questions, do not get them to expand on the topics that they're speaking about. Just to take away that feeding tube that they have, and never allow them, other than what I talked about, the illusion of control for control's sake, just for whatever, but never allow them to control the narrative.
No, the best thing to do is find your own sovereignty.
Yeah.
And live with that.
Yeah. Honestly, when you're dealing with narcissists, a narcissist is kind of like dealing with someone with leprosy.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is avoid contact, because it's harder to get rid of leprosy than it is to just avoid the person with leprosy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It really is. So for the audience, I would absolutely say develop your powers of discernment, right? You can test the waters with a narcissist easily. You can actually throw narcissist bait out there. And then you test it, and then you can actually say, oh shit, you're a narcissist. Let me move to another part of the country. Okay? So here's an example of a narcissist bait. You're in a conversation, and there are narcissists around. This is what you throw up. Yeah, I realize. You see that talking stick right there. You're in a conversation, right? And there's a narcissist around, and you want to figure out whether that person is a narcissist or not. Let me throw you some bait. You say something along the lines of, oh my God, all of the stuff that you're saying, wow, you must be really learned. How did you get so bright? Ask them that question. We'll spend the next 5 hours telling you how they got so bright, how intelligent they are, how totally cool they are, right? So you have to be very careful, right? Throw that bait out there and wait until they'll be jumping on you. Yes, I got this bright like this and that, and I did this and I did that, and when I was in France, and then you're just watching them and you're like, oh, okay. While you're planning your exit strategy from the event that you're in, and stay away from that person like the plague, like the plague, all right? Because you're dealing with someone with leprosy, you don't want to catch that infection. So that's the first thing. That's how you develop powers of discernment and throw some bait in their direction. But generally speaking, there's a comment in the chat I want to address here. Revenge is a narcissistic tendency. Yes and no, because a lot of people don't know the difference between revenge and retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, there's a difference. So as an example, it's kind of like the difference between anger and indignation. But let me give you the slight difference. Revenge is when you step on my toe, I kill your whole family, your pets, your all the roaches inside your house. I'm wiping out the entire city block. Revenge has no logic attached to it.
Sounds like a fixer, David. Sound like a fixer right now.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Right? That's what revenge is, all right? All right? You stepped on my shoe, I'm killing your whole city block. I'm killing the entire geographical region where you live, okay? All right, forget it. You see that hemisphere on Earth that has to go too, right? I'm erasing everybody who knows you, everybody who's ever heard of you, right? That's revenge. You understand the energy behind revenge. Retribution is what we do in the legal system. It is absolutely retribution, whether you like it or not. Someone steals something, you put them in jail, right? But it's measured. It is measured. Okay? Revenge is not measured. Revenge is a wagon without a rider running with 5 horses at the front of it. Retribution is a little bit different than that. So here's the difference. When you are dealing with a narcissist, revenge is part of their trait system. You are absolutely correct. Who made that comment? Yeah, right, Maty. Right. right? So it's actually part of their system. So let's say you and your husband have an issue with the neighbors over, I don't know, cutting grass on Sundays. Your husband says, one of these days, I'm going to take my gun, I'm going to go out there, I'm killing everybody. Okay? That would be not apropos for the crime that the neighbor has committed. Then you may be married to a narcissist. Okay? You
And so,
understand? You understand the difference. The energy is different. If he's saying, you know what, they cut their grass on Sunday, I'm cutting the grass on Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning. Even that might be a little bit more revenge, right? But you get the general idea. It's a little bit more measures. He's actually thinking about whatever. And so you have to be very, very careful when it comes to that kind of behavior. But I want to say something. One more thing that I have to say about this thing. When you're dealing with a narcissist, cutting across their delusions of grandeur about themselves can cause them to target you. And that's when we go into sociopathology, right? And psychopathology. Because
well,
a
I was gonna,
sociopath absolutely find you.
I was gonna say, David. So narcissists, for what I've found from them, can have a tiny bit of empathy, tiny little smidge of them. It is where they feel sorry and for what they've done. But going on to what you're saying, sociopath, that's a different kettle of fish, where they just don't have any fucking personality. They don't have any emotions. They don't feel sorry for anything. And that sociopath are fucking insane. Like,
You find narcissists will generally have show emotions and empathy towards things other than humans. So like animals, things like this, they'll have certain things that they're really into, certain I want to say hobbies. I don't know. David might be able to expand better, but usually that focus is focused on something else.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to human relationships.
Yeah. Because they're not getting any, like with an animal or a cat or something, they're not getting anything that's going to give them anything but unconditional love.
They're in control.
They're in control, but that's what they're seeking. So when a narcissist isn't getting their needs met, then there tends to be some sort of fallout, isn't it? So they go into this blaming others around them.
Okay, so there are a few terms that we have to acquaint ourselves with. The first term is that narcissist not getting his or her needs met will cycle into a situation of retribution, first of all, and then revenge. So as an example, first of all, we have to say that all narcissists will cheat on you. Okay, let's say you're in a relationship. Narcissists can't help but cheat. You want to know why? Because they need to feel like they're more than. So a narcissist in a relationship will cheat on the spouse, specifically because they need more validation.
And adulation.
Yeah, and adulation
could be
and
on
validation.
porn sites as well.
Right? So they want that validations, which is why I say again, for those of you who are on social media and posting a bunch of crap on social media that has nothing to do with anything positive, but it's just about yourself. Oh, look, I went downtown and I bought those shoes. Nobody cares. You know what I've done on my social media feeds? If you post some stupid shit like that, you're getting unfollowed. For certain, you absolutely are. All right, because I'm not being part of your validations system. I went and bought these high heels. They're so great, and I got them at a cheap deal. Like, no, you're not getting any like from me. No, right? As a result of that, that's number one. All right, social media is turning people into absolute narcissists. Absolute, because this like system that they have is making regular people turn into narcissistic, horrible people. Okay, and when they don't get their likes, they get upset. So narcissist needs the likes, the social validation. He needs validations from the relationship. They need validation from their friends and family. Should you not provide that validation? So as an example, you telling a narcissist, hey, hi, I'm sorry, wake up, hi, you awake? Good. You ain't shit. would not be good for a narcissist, as an example. It would absolutely not be good. That narcissist has your number. You just painted a target on your back, because now that you've told the narcissist you're not shit, that narcissist is coming in your direction. At some point in time, that narcissist needs to put you in your place and make you understand that you are beneath me. You must, right? And so, one of the things that you might not do is wake one up and say, you know what, you ain't shit, right? However, if you are going to do that, please make sure that you have an exit strategy to get away from that narcissist in a way that they can't find you. And that would mean total social media blackout, communications blackout, complete communications blackout. I can't stress this enough. Shut down. Because that person has your number, and that person needs to put you in a place, even though you break up with them and you move to another state. If you are still in communication with that individual, and there's some difficult situations where you might have a child with that individual, keep the communication to a minimum. That man wants to hurt you. That woman wants to hurt you if they're a narcissist. On a point of order.
And also things like denial of sex as well.
Yeah. A narcissist will use sexuality either in the way of cheating on you to get validation, or denying you sex to make you understand that, well, there's a certain amount of punishment that has to happen. What it is that you violate and you don't give me validation. And here's the thing. If someone is denying you sex because they have some grouse against you and it persists in a long period of time, exit, stage left. That person is an absolute narcissist. Right? Because some people, the normal psychology would try to work things out.
David, can I ask a question to you? So if someone came to see you and said, right, David, I'm a narcissist, what's the first protocol you would go through with them or start to work on with them? So for all of those listening who have narcissistic tendencies, what can they do to start changing?
Okay, there are two different levels of narcissists. Narcissistic tendencies, every one of us has, right? If you're on social media and you have a social media account, boy, you have a little bit of narcissism in you, right? If you're on a dating site, even worse, okay? Because there you are showing the best pictures of yourself. Look at me. I'm surfing on a board, but there's no sea around me. You just see me on the, never mind. We all have these kinds of narcissistic tendencies, and there's narcissistic personality disorder, which is a clinical situation. Someone with NPD is probably not going to walk into your office and say, I'm a narcissist, I need help. Someone with narcissistic tendencies is probably going to run inside your office and say, I need some help. I seem to be doing things that I don't know why I'm doing it. The first protocol that I would do is determine whether or not that person has NPD or that person has just narcissistic tendencies. If they have narcissistic tendencies, that's easy to resolve, right? Because you ask them for examples and you rework the examples using cognitive behavioral therapy as an example, right? Can you see things from a different perspective? If that person has NPD, boy, you in for a rough time, okay? Because that person is first going to challenge you as a therapist, right? Because that person wants validation from you. Here's another thing for you therapists that are in the chat and those people that are doing spiritual work and spiritual counseling. If somebody enters your office and needs validation from you as a victim, don't give it to them. I'm going to repeat that like 3 times. If somebody walks into your office and says, I'm a victim, look at how victimized I am, and you go like, I totally agree, you're a victim, you're a bad therapist. Okay, don't validate that, because that's an example of somebody seeking validation. That person might be a narcissist in disguise.
Yeah.
That person may come and tell you one side of a story about their marriage, as an example. They might tell you, my wife does this, my wife does that. She doesn't even take any videos of me throwing away the garbage. What kind of woman does that? Not supportive at all, right? You write that nonsense and you're validating this nonsense, you're a bad therapist. You absolutely need to tell that person there are other perspectives. I can't make a decision as to whether you're a victimized soul because I only see one side of the story.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's the protocol I would go through, but CBT is probably a good idea for someone with narcissistic tendencies. So why don't we run a scenario with the entire audience right now? For the people in the audience, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You can answer inside the chats. You guys ready?
Ready, bro.
When was the last time that you've been on social media? Has it been today? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you all leave a like? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Did the like that you left on that social media post involve anything to do with you?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
This show, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of different for us.
We're
Isn't it?
going down these kinds of roads.
Does it count?
No, we're going down this kind of road. We're going all the way down this kind of road. Right? Did you return to the post that you left the like on that had something to do with you to see who else left a like on the post that had something to do with you that you left a like on?
Not
No.
today, but I do that. Not today. but
I don't do that with
that.
likes,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, I'm giving out cards. You all need to come to my office. All of you need to. I have a chair. You all are all going to be sitting on my office chair. But you understand my point. So it's not a hard and fast rule. I don't think that you guys have major narcissistic tendencies, but you see how social media made y'all act like narcissists. You see it.
Yep.
Do you see how dangerous that is? Because some people actually they imbibe it into their minds, right? So that's little question path that I just brought y'all on, showed y'all how social media can make you into a narcissist. Because a narcissist will absolutely act that way. You feel me, my brothers and sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, let me look at social media because I don't like it to go.
So would you? Sorry, go ahead, Amy.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I've been listening to the conversation because of my internet, but since you did this with this little quiz, is there a difference between fear and traumas, or is it mixed? Like, what I mean is, if people go back and look at their likes, then they have fear, that nobody likes them. Then maybe that's still the narcissist. But I was wondering if people mix up having a fear of something rather than it being a trauma.
Okay, there's a difference between a phobia and there's a difference between a trauma. If the phobia is related to an event, such as, oh, I got pushed off the second story of a floor and the second story of a building and I slammed to the ground, then we can put that firmly in the trauma category for sure.
Okay.
The person may
Okay.
develop a phobia of heights after that, right? Depending on how old they are, right? But that's the case. But I'm getting some people from the chat saying that we should return to how to heal trauma. How do you heal trauma? Anybody out there?
I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do for clients and for myself is regression, is by going back to the memory itself and changing the subconscious programs as you go back to the memory and change the outlook of what you see the memory as. In psychic surgery, I did this actually yesterday with a gentleman on the mentorship. We started going into many different memories of the past, and we started doing psychic surgery work to specifically change it, and he had to do it physically, where he was the essence of him doing the psychic surgery, changing that memory for him. Then we went into different experiences. So one of the many ways to do it is you can do treatments where you go back and you start fortifying prayer to yourself. You start giving yourself a groundedness again. You start giving yourself strength. And sometimes you may have demons in there. Sometimes what happens is when you have people projecting shit, I tend to do loads of mirrors and start projecting all that shit back to them. So as you're going back to them, you're giving everyone their shit back, so that projection's not as kind of interfering with the spirit and the body. Forgiveness, that's the first part of working with trauma. Do the forgiveness work. Make sure before you go into that memory of someone who's abused you, you have to learn how to forgive them, not for only your sake, but not for their sake, for your sake, to allow freedom, because that charge can really stop you from going into that next layer of deeper healing and forgiveness and release and so on. So start off with forgiveness. Go see a hypnotherapist, past life regression therapist, someone who has the skills to be able to regress you back to those moments. And the more you go back to those moments, it's over layering it, fortifying it, until the point comes where you have this moment where the residual memory's not as effective in the I am self in the moment of the now. And I've had that where I've gone through trauma work where I've gone back 4 or 5 times and I've got a new light about me. I'm like, holy fuck. Yeah. I feel like I look to myself in the mirror, I'm like, holy shit. And those moments where you do the great work and you see the essence of you change from doing the work back there, and it's so beautiful to see people when they're in that crying state in trauma, but not crying scared, but crying releasing, remembering, and so on. I'm sure everyone's got lots of different ways to add to that as well.
Yeah, I would like to get involved. So for anybody out there who is experiencing traumas and the effects of traumas and doesn't know what to do about it, first and foremost, if you're not a healer, then you should seek one out, a good one, first and foremost. However, if you are a healer, and we're saying even if you're just a novice Reiki practitioner, it's about going back to the traumas, going back to where the traumas started. And you will be able to do this. You just use hindsight and you just look at when did these issues begin in your life. And then you can look back at certain points and times in your life, and the subconscious will allow you this information. Go back to certain points in your life and then you do the healing. So it really is as simple as if you've just started learning Reiki, you just imagine yourself at that time with yourself doing Reiki on yourself. And then as you progress as a healer and you learn different skills, you focus those skills on past versions of yourself and future versions of yourself. But here we're talking about, traumas here. And so that really, for me, is the essence of healing trauma. There's obviously, David talked about the body. So, there's all other methods there, but it almost always, you should go back to the actual original trauma and begin to heal it from that point, moving forward to the you that you are now.
Yeah, certainly loving yourself, I think, very much not in a narcissistic way, but in a self-caring way, that you actually want to pay attention to your self-healing, and you're going to invest in your own well-being now. With cranial sacral therapy, somatic release has got to be absolutely. I've had so many wonderful experiences with clients on the table, releasing massive traumas, and that works by looking for the energy cyst where the trauma is held, and working with the client. Might not happen on the first session, it rarely does. So get yourself a few sessions, and I think Maty mentioned it earlier, fascial release, anything like that, even massage, is great. Massage, a great start, but certainly cranial sacral therapy, and you're investing in yourself and investing in your own healing when you go and seek the help of others. You can do obviously the inner work, like the guys are saying, the journaling, the hindsight, the going back to yourself when you were little and giving that past self the love they didn't get, giving that past self the recognition that they didn't get, and telling them it's okay now, you've come through it, you've grown, you've evolved. All this sort of work, it's not overnight, it takes time, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. I'd like to add to this that I just recently had one come up for me, and what I did was it was my 12-year-old self, and I just journaled to her, and we had a conversation together, and it was almost as if my wisdom was helping her see what the patterns are and what the beliefs I had as a 12-year-old child. And it was like 5 pages long, and it was almost like just unconsciously writing. It wasn't any thought in it. It was just going back and forth with conversation with her. So That helps, and I also do infrared saunas. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. That helps me with acupuncture. So I use that in conjunction with that.
That was a wonderful technique you just discussed there, Amy. Actually, the idea of not just going back and speaking to a past self as the you of the now, but actually becoming that past self and writing, because that slows down the process and allows you to go to way more depths.
Oh yeah. We did, and we, like we've been talking about the grandmothers. Like I could feel my grandmothers coming in, and the all the tribe of the grandmothers. It was quite beautiful. It's quite beautiful. That's the first time I've ever done that with my past self.
How about you, David?
A lot of people, in order to seek help to heal from trauma, you probably need to know that you're traumatized in the first place and your behavior is manifesting the trauma. So with everything else, I'm going to go with meditate first, because it certainly helps you to see your own bullshit when all the noise around you has stopped, all the distractions around you has stopped, and you're locked in there with your own self. You're going to see the bullshit that you are privy to or you're acting upon. And that is the first thing. To know is the first thing. The second thing would be to find the appropriate technique. So if your trauma is body-based, as in you were thrown off the second story of a building and hit the pavement downstairs, you're going to need to see a body-based therapist, because the body will remember the trauma. If your trauma is somebody waking you up in the middle of the night and say, "Hi, you're not shit," that's a mental or psychologically based trauma, and you're going to have to seek something for that. Put things into their proper perspective. Find yourself a therapist, because if you try to heal your trauma sometimes by yourself, it may go horribly wrong depending on how deep-seated the trauma is. If it is a spiritual-based trauma, and there are spiritual-based traumas, we didn't speak about it enough, but I could pretty much give you an idea of what spiritually-based traumas are. Whether we want to admit it or not, people, especially children, fall victim to negative influences in the spirit world. Okay? If that child has aberrant behavioral patterns that have no basis in any kind of abuse or whatever else, and that child is visibly under attack, you absolutely have the responsibility to have that child heal. The church has been doing exorcisms for the past how many years? You really think that you've been possessed and you come out of it and I'm good, I'm okay. No! Your body, your mind has been twisted into ways that it wasn't meant to go. Okay? So you might want to see someone to help you process that kind of trauma, as an example. If you were born, like we have situations out where I live, where there was an active Luciferian and Satanist community. Okay? They took young ladies, and the things that they did to those young ladies is like unbelievable. This really happened to people. These cults, they take people and they bend them, twist their minds into different places. If you are an ex-cult member who has had rituals done on you, are usually quite painful, right? Extremely painful, because they're trying to extract energy from you, and the fear and pain are powerful energy sources. If you are that person, then you absolutely need to revisit your sovereignty as a spiritual being existing in time and space, because that has been broken. That is the point of a lot of these rituals. Okay? And so find the technique that is good, that is right for you. And if you are that person who's been in a cult and people have been doing things to you, like rape, bleeding you, what else is there? Poisoning you, and all those things to extract energy from you, then you need the spiritual counselor, you need a psychological counselor, and you absolutely need a body-based therapist as well. You need someone who's multi-skilled in all of these areas.
And that goes for all trauma. That goes for all trauma. You know, it is a multifaceted practice, right, David? You know, it's not just you expect to go and have past life regression and that's the job done.
Yes, and that's the mistake a lot of people make. They think they put a lot of faith in the psychologist. They put a lot of faith in the massage therapist. Okay? The time has come. We're not living 30 years back. If you are the kind of practitioner who says, my specialty is massage and that's all I'm doing, then you might want to reconsider this. Okay? Because the people that are going to be coming into your clinic in this day and age, in 2023, are all the way effed up in every level of their being. So it behooves you as a practitioner, if you are serious about not just making money, but actually helping people to become multifaceted and multi-skilled. Everyone on this panel is multi-skilled.
Yeah. And you touched on something, David, as well, that's a whole nother show. I mean, we're approaching the 2-hour mark, but so we really can't go into it right now, I don't think, but haunting. And this is one of the hardest parts of healing to get across to some people, especially if they're not particularly spiritually aware or endowed, is how much haunting does actually affect people, because these types of scenarios feed from this energy. Haunting is a big issue from my observations of the world.
They feed from unhealed trauma and then create more. So
One of my
they've got
biggest
continuous
challenges
supply.
in all my years of practice, the biggest challenge you're ever going to have is to try to get people to stop being afraid. That is the biggest thing that you're going to run into, because fear can run for a long, long, long time. And to get them to stop being afraid and to get them to claim their sovereignty as individuals, powerful beings in this creation, no one is more powerful than the other. This is one of the tricks that people who traumatize people always get people to believe. I am more powerful than you are.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
You
can't
need
be-
me.
Yeah.
You need me to provide the answers. You need me to heal you, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So you can't be the greatest magician to ever live. Ba-dum-shh, ba-dum-shh. Talking shit.
Our friends talking shit show. Right? You cannot be the greatest, most powerful magician to ever live. You can't be this thing, and you shouldn't be trying to be that thing. You want to know why? Because it's not self-actualization. You may think, well, I'm just trying to actualize myself as the best and most powerful magician to ever live. But what that is just trying to feed your own damn ego.
Yeah.
Just be cool, man. Like, just be cool.
And the thing is, if you are a great magician, most people aren't going to fucking know. Honestly, you're not going to get the validation for it, man. You're still going to have to go to work. You're still going to have to pay the bills. You're still going to have to do all the things you do now
Yeah.
and face your traumas.
Yeah.
I have a question,
Talk to
if I
me.
may. Okay, so the timeline that we did in the class, right? So I know that I have more traumas, but they don't seem to be coming forward. So is there a technique on how to know if you have other traumas? Because it seems to me that when I was writing it down, it seems like they're the same old ones that I remember.
Okay, so let me answer that question. Amy's referring to an exercise that I gave my psychotherapy class, which she's in, concerning how to uncover traumas in a timeline. So you basically, I'll explain it. You make an arrow diagram. There are 2 arrows on either side. Basically, that's what an arrow diagram is. Put 0 at one end and the age that you are at the other end. A line in the middle is the middle of the age, and then you put all the good things that you can remember happening to you above it, and the bad things beneath it. Okay, so you can see the trends and so on. So, Amy, there are 2 ways that I can answer that question. Yes, there is. To uncover the rest of them, I'll be seeing you on Friday, where we can uncover the rest of your traumas. We will absolutely be.
I need to uncover them, don't I?
Yes. No, everybody has to get on my chair. Everybody's getting on my chair.
Now, Amy, you need to heal them. How you go about that is
Take the stress test just here, guys. So there's a survey David put up called the stress survey. So give it a click on the phone, take a photo just above Laura,
No,
Yeah.
Amy, that's number one. The second thing is that the timeline, what it is that you have, look at the timeline and look at clusters in the timeline where bad things or good things happen. And then if you see blank spots inside of there, then all you have to do is go in, meditate, and find the thing that's close to that triggers it. Like, let's say you have a cluster of things at 26, a big space until 36, as an example. Go to the last thing on 26 and meditate on the last thing on 26 and how it affected you, and it'll uncover the rest in the gap. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Okay.
But anyway, we'll be seeing you on Friday.
Thank you.
When
I
we,
know. Thank you.
And there's a great technique as well, which Andrew taught me, and taught many people do this, is talking to the fire. So this is about going back into the memories, and you'll realize what trauma is or what trauma you've had when you start going back to the earliest memories, opening a sacred fire, opening a sacred space, and start relaying your story to the fire. Then you'll see what's charged, what's polarity, what's unresolved, and you'll start knowing thyself a lot more. And that's one of the greatest, most powerful things you can do as a human being, is know thyself as much as possible. The more you know yourself, the more you're going to evolve spiritually, and the more balanced you're going to be. And that talking to the fire for me was a huge opening for so many different layers upon myself, because I was like, wow, I feel like I know myself now. Before I kind of forgot about my traumas, but now I'm just going into them and just trying to go deeper and deeper with more layers and so on.
Yeah, one of the greatest tools in the Master's toolbox is the power of prayer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amen, my brother.
And the things you
Hallelujah.
don't face, the things you don't look at and won't look at, they will come up again and again until you face them, until you actually do something about trying to heal them. They keep repeating in your life somewhere or another. You can't get away with
Yes.
it.
Can't run.
What a show, guys, so far, and we've got another just under 10 minutes now left of today's show, and I'd like everyone just to put a comment how they're doing, how the show's been for them, and if you can drop a share on the show as well, a like, a subscribe, we really appreciate that. And thanks again for David coming on, Laura, Maty, Amy. It's been incredible, these shows. I have so much fun.
And guys, if we traumatized you today, let us know.
Maty's traumatized from the Talking Stick show. It's
Yeah.
gonna be. You are right there, David, because it's every show. It's next to Maty.
I've got Dale's stick in my face every time I turn around. Oh, I like that one. That's better. Here we go. More of that.
Guys,
I mean, there's loads more we can talk on this, actually. We can do it again further
So many
down
different
the line
subjects
with
we can
David.
expand on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's go around. How can people get a hold of you, David, if they want to come see you for some trauma release
Sit in your chair.
or learn about
okay,
it?
so all right, so guys, you can find me at info@universalcitizentv.com. We have a bunch of new things that are coming out. We're going to be making our show again. It's going to be probably called something different because UCM VIP is burnt. So we're going to be having these guys on that show as well, all right? Talking about specific topics, dealing with health, not necessarily spirituality, but very good topics as well. Oh, and we'll be giving out stuff to you guys very soon because, the spiritual community needs some help, especially business help. So if you guys have any kind of need in terms of business, legal, or whatever else, you guys can contact us at info@universalcitizentv.com. Take care. Amy, that's you.
Amy.
You're up next.
Okay. You can find me on earthnouveau.com on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And come join us anytime.
Great to have you on, Amy. And
Thank you.
Laura?
You can find me on twofeathersmedicine.com and my Facebook page. And contact me on private messenger there, or laura2feathers@gmail.com. I do one-to-one sessions if that's what you like. I do cranial sacral therapy. I do an ancestral healing, shamanic training, whatever you want really related to spirituality. I can I can usually assist in some way. So just drop me a line, and I'm there. Be back with Prayer Sunday probably next Sunday.
Thank you, Laura. And Maty.
Okay, guys. So I do psychic surgery, psychic readings. So you can book a private session with me. Use psychic skills to do exactly the things that we were talking about. There's no topic, no issue that we can't address. I also, if you go to twofeathersmedicine.com and click on my name, there's a link there to book a private session with me. There's also a light language course, and I also have a selection of light language short videos which are less than $20 a piece, and these are dealing with some of these types of issues. So there's things such as overcoming shyness and meekness, self-confidence, PMS, issues such as that, and also removal of stalker and troll energy in light of recent circumstances. If anybody's experienced this kind of thing where people are projecting at you, there are some activations there that will help you to remove that energy, and a whole host of other different healings there. So head over to twofeathersmedicine.com and you'll find me and Laura there.
Incredible. And yeah, so if you want to have a psychic surgery session with myself, go on to daletobin.com. I am also doing psychic surgery practitioner training. So if you want to learn the art of energy healing, how to do it responsibly, how to read energy comfortably, how to be grounded in the skill of being a healer and not be in the clouds as you're doing it, go on to daletobin.com. And I've got a date for the 19th to the 20th of June where I'll be doing the practitioner training for people in America. I've got a date as well for Australia and England at the start of next month. So if you want to join us wherever you are in the world and learn psychic surgery skill, how to do soul retrieval, how to work with the grandmothers and work with them on the psychic surgery session itself, what a pleasure, guys. And from the first show of the Talking Six show 3 years ago to now, and meeting you incredible people, it's been such a journey and such a ride. And I just want to thank everyone for listening and watching who supported the show week in and week out. David, Laura, Maty, Amy, you're amazing, and thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Thank you, Dale.
Yep, and go on our social medias and leave a like on the show.
David will be watching.
Yeah, because we'll be watching. We need our validation.
Yes, we will have it.
Give us all validation.
Go on, drop us a like. Thank you, guys. Good night, good morning. God bless.
Thank you.